Life doesn't always go the way we plan. Yep, there are times when things just take a turn and we didn't expect it, we didn't plan it, and we have to shift our expectations in life. Today, I have a beautiful conversation with a friend of mine, Dana Lyons. She's an author and a coach, and we're just going to dive into this conversation. I hope you'll join me as we talk about letting go of life's expectations. Welcome to Longing for More, where Christians come to strengthen their faith, revive their soul, and learn to live their lives with a sense of fulfillment and peace. Listen each week to learn how to incorporate your faith into your daily activities, stop wandering through life feeling empty and unfulfilled, and begin to live your more. Let's get started. Hey everyone, as I mentioned in my intro, I am so excited to have my friend Dana with me today. And Dana, I just want to start out today by having you introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about you and whatever it is you want to share with us right now. This is going to be just a fun, easy conversation. So,
Yeah. Well, one, thank you for having me. I'm really honored. We can talk for hours usually when we get on the phone. So this is pure joy for me. My name is Dana Lyons. I'm an author, speaker, and coach. I'm a mom of five, grandma of now four. As of yesterday, we have
yay.
grandbaby number four. And my heart really have four pillars on everything I do. That is one, to give hope, then to share, to inspire courage, then to build your faith, and encourage you every step of the way. So with whatever I do, whether I'm writing, speaking, mentoring, that's four pillars that are really important to me. It's hopeful. It brings out the courage within you. Take another step, build your faith when you take those steps, and then I'm an encourager. So
And you
just want to
are.
cheer you on.
Yes, and you have
Yeah.
been that for me from the first day we met. And I really love that the four pillars because it's one of those things where again, so many times we talk about when we talk about faith, we get this idea that it's about going to church and we keep our lives separate. And I mean, you just said it. Those four pillars are there in every aspect, in everything you do, yeah, and you do. You bring that to every conversation. But I think it's important that we remember that those things, that hope and courage and faith and encouragement, are valid everywhere, right?
Yeah. Everybody needs it. I do too.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's beautiful. Well,
Hmm.
today we're talking a little bit about expectation. Um, And I don't know about you, but this was a big shift for me in my faith and in the realization that the world has us in this place where our expectations are so worldly, for the lack of a better word. And, and it can be really discouraging when we don't get the things that we think we want and the things we've worked so hard for. Is that something you've experienced as well?
Oh, I feel like this has to be up there with one of the giants that us humans have to overcome. I don't care if you're not a Christian, you're a young Christian, or you've been Christian for, a believer for 75, 100 years. Everybody, we're continually coming up against our own expectations. And I find that most of the time, my biggest discouragement and my biggest moments where I just felt deflated is when my own expectations weren't met. So whether it's your marriage, right? You have these expectations of what your husband or wife are going to be like, and when they don't meet that expectation, they could be meeting that need. But if it comes across, expectation is a funny thing because it creates a picture. What I noticed about my own, it creates a picture in our mind of what this should look like and be like, and the experience we should have. And God could be answering all those things, but if it doesn't look like that, we somehow think we missed it, and we really tune everything else out because it just draws our attention. I can share a story about expectation. I went to Israel back in 2019. Now, you go to Israel, we read about this in the Bible, right? You read about the Holy Lands, and I had the chance to go. So excited. I'm gonna have my holy moment. If you're gonna go in the holy, I'm gonna see the burning bush. I mean, I didn't say that, but you have that expectation it's gonna be amazing, and it was. But I got over there, and it was the first 24, 48 hours, and I'm discouraged. I'm like so saddened, and it felt cold. I was just really so sad. And I said, Lord, what is going on? I'm so happy to be here, and yet I feel nothing. And he called me out on it. And he said, Dana. And he kept bringing me back to the woman at the well. The woman at the well where Jesus, talks to her. Where she says, he goes right for the heart. The Lord always goes for our heart. He's not addressing all the outer things. He just addresses our thoughts, our soul. And so he immediately calls her out, asks her questions of her soul. And with distraction, she then asks a question. Oh, you Jews say it's the place of worship's over here. Where us Samaritans say it's over here. Which one of, what's right? Well, he used that scripture to point out to me. He said, Dana, you have this expectation. You think in the Holy Lands, it's holier over here. And other times people think, oh, in America or wherever they're at is holier over there. Some people say it's here, others say it's there. And he said, Dana, the most holy ground is deep within you. Because that's where I am. So wherever you go is holy. And I was just like, wow. And he said, this is your own expectation. Drop your expectations and pick up a heart of expectancy. See, expectancy is a little different than expectations, because expectation kind of it's to me my own expectations, very tunnel. I have very specific things in my own expectations, whereas expectancy says pick up a heart of expectancy and then expect to see me everywhere. And do you know, on that trip, everywhere I looked, that's all I saw was him. It changed the whole outlook because I was expectant to see him working, showing me things, arriving, pointing things out, guiding me. He gave me scripture after scripture. Everything came alive. But I was so wanting that. Where's the burning bush? Like it's not there.
It's
He's
not
burning
burning
within
anymore.
you. No, he's burning within you. And we look to
Oh,
all these other things. Expectation's a funny thing, but I think it's the thing that keeps us from him the most.
I love that. That is such a beautiful, beautiful analogy. And it's funny because I talk about in a different view the in the chapter the expectation shift, and I talk about how so many of us, we have these expectations for our life and our work, and we're working for the big house and the fancy car and the promotions and the jobs and all the things, and when they don't turn out the way we expect, then we get frustrated, discouraged, and we think, oh, I need to change jobs, or I need to, this marriage isn't working, and I've got to change something. And when we make those changes and it's still not what we want, and like you said, it's because it's inside of us. And so what I try to remind people is that when we realize that God has us right where we are for a specific reason. And I love that word expectancy. If I'm looking and expecting to see him in the situation and asking, God, what do you want me to do here?
Yeah.
Then it's entirely different.
Yeah.
Entirely different.
Well, it takes the focus off the thing you're looking for and it places it on him. So you're always looking for him in those situations. What's he saying? What's he doing? What's he show? What's he, rather than my expectation or that thing, which takes it off of him.
Amen. And
Yeah.
and I agree. I don't remember exactly how you said it when we started, but it's like the biggest lesson and the hardest lesson to learn. And I've always said that it was easier when I was in my corporate career because I could go to work and my boss told me what to do, and there's always things to do. But when I started my own business and it was entirely up to me and the things I would try, I mean, it was like, it's one thing to just keep doing the things that are coming at you when you're in that job or that career, not to make light of it because it was important and it was making an impact. But when I moved on, and that was when I learned that I needed God I needed him as my CEO. And that was when I started to learn that I needed him, seek him first, and all the rest will come. But I keep thinking, I can't imagine how cool it would have been had I learned that lesson back in the day, to walk through the doors every morning and say, okay, God, let's go do this like I do now. Where are we most needed? Can you imagine how much more impactful my time there might have been?
Hmm.
And so I just want to encourage people to realize that it doesn't matter where we are or what we're doing, whether we're sweeping the floor as the janitor in a school or whether we're the CEO in the most prosperous business, when we're seeking him first and expecting him to be there to guide us,
So true.
right?
This whole live your more, that really what I think you're doing is taking us and reminding us what is God's best for us. There are a lot of things we could do good.
Yes.
They're good things, but is it God's best? I say it to a lot of people often as one of the lessons is how do I stop surviving and go to thriving? Because God wants us to thrive. So we
Yes.
can go in I call survival mode really autopilot mode.
Yeah.
We could do a lot of things, especially when we could juggle a lot of different things. But are you really living your more? And I think as you get older, you kind of learn those things. You learn what really is important and what's not. And there are some really young, wise people I have learned from who have learned earlier than I. Right.
Right.
So
Right.
it's not necessarily in years where you learn it, but experiences. And
Yeah.
I said this to you, I think, once before. We live in a generation unlike any other generation, that there is a ton of expectations on us. There is a ton, whether it be our culture, our families, social media, all of that plays into telling you all these things you have to do. I mean, just look at how we chase followers on social media.
Yeah.
You gotta post every day. And we're chasing and we're chasing and we're chasing. And yet at the end of the day, is that something is this God's best? Are you thrive? For some people, they thrive and they could do that well and they're called to do it. But for others, are you really thriving? I mean, in no other generation, I think we have to learn, say, that's a good idea. This is not God's best. And this is not living my more. It's pulling from my life,
Right. Right.
you
And I
know?
love that you bring that up because actually on my website, I have a section where I talk about letting go of the good to get better. And we don't have enough bandwidth in our lives to do all of the good things that are there. And that's why when we're plugged in and we're in his word and seeking his will, he will tell us the things that we do need to just let go. They might be wonderful things,
Hmm.
and it might be serving and it might be doing all the things that the world tells us, but if it's not our thing, then we might not ever fulfill that true purpose that he has for us in our life. And
It's
yeah,
true.
yeah.
And a lot of talk to go back to expectations, because I feel like, oh, maybe somebody needs to hear this. Some of the hardest moments is my own expectations on myself.
Mm,
It's not always our mom or dad or husband or wife or even children or coworkers. A lot of times it's our own expectations. And I just want to encourage all the listeners, if you're afraid to put them down, I will tell you, you are spending more energy, and it's harder to hold them all up than to actually just lay it at his feet and let him show you which ones to pick back up.
yeah.
Because we spend a lot of time holding and juggling. And what do I do? This may be an opportunity. And with God, follow peace. I mean, He is our Prince of Peace. And if there's no peace, then take a deeper look at that, because maybe you're not supposed to be carrying it.
Yeah.
It's
Come.
killing a lot of us. I mean, it's really tearing down our health and our family, our marriages. And is it really
Yes,
worth it? You know.
exactly. Come to me and I will give you rest, right?
Mm-hmm.
You will share the burden with us. But boy, that's a hard one. We have been trained that it's up to us and we have to keep trying harder. And if it's not working, then we just got to buck up and do more. And living our more has nothing to do with doing more. It's all
Mm-hmm.
about doing what's his will. So I love that. Yeah. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's really cool. So one of the things that really we've talked about before is kind of that place where and it's truly when we know that we need more, it's that place
Yeah.
where we're either we're angry and we're frustrated, we're out of alignment, or we're bored and dissatisfied, and Again, I talked a little bit ago about how, just find what's the expectation, but sometimes it's because we've been afraid to do what he's asked us to do.
Hmm.
Have you ever seen that in your situation or in your life where you felt that calling and it was like, really, Lord, you want me to do
Oh,
that?
that is, for many years and still today, I would say not so much today, but oftentimes I feel so one with Moses. Like me and Moses were probably, it's like we could be siblings because when he's like, I can't really, can you pick somebody else? I can't speak. The ones in the Bible who made all these excuses, I'm too young. I mean, Jeremiah, I'm too young. And Moses, what if they don't believe what I'm saying? Like, who do I say even sent me? That whole doubt in yourself, I relate to them so much.
Right.
And a lot of that is fear, like you're not enough to do. But God is not asking, He's not picking you because you're the skilled one. Oftentimes, it's usually reverse. He's picking you because you're not, and He wants to work through you. So
Right.
it has nothing to do always with your skill. I mean, sometimes he'll use your skill, but what I learned in my own life, he uses my weaknesses actually, because when we're weak, he is strong.
Right.
And I can argue with him all day. I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. I really had a bad case of the I can'ts. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. And I realized, no, you can, because through me, you could do everything.
Yeah.
I was trained. I said to my mom at one point, I have been trained to be a survivor, but we've never really learned how to survive, how to thrive. My
Yeah.
mom said, you know what? I never learned how to truly thrive. And God says, look, if I called you to do it, you can do it. You may have to go in a different route, a different way. You may have to learn some things, and it may actually even take you longer. But if I say you can, you can. Because in me, you could
Right.
do everything.
Yeah.
And oft,
Oh, go ahead.
no, and oftentimes we think when God says, I'm calling you, or go here, or talk to that person, or do this, we get nervous as if we now have to figure it all out. And we really don't. It's just take a step and lean on Him. Take a step. I'll give you everything to say. I'll tell you what to do. I'll put people in your life to support you and teach you and train you and partner with you. And yet we think, okay, I got it,
Yeah.
or I can't do it.
Well, and when you were talking about your mom, what came up for me is a story that I've told a number of times about my mom. And what it was really heartbreaking one day because at 80 years old,
Wow.
she finally gave herself permission to start painting again.
Wow.
Yeah, because she had been doing all the things, right, and chasing the
Yeah.
career, and taking care of the spouse and raising the family and all the things. And that she had kind of dabbled in it for a while and then just got busy. And I kept saying, every once in a while I'd be like, Mom, why don't you just paint? Oh, I don't have time, or I don't have the right light, or there were always things. Well, she finally started again at about 80. And the day she said to me, I feel like I've wasted my whole life, really struck me, because sometimes the gifts and the callings that God puts on our heart have nothing to do with our job and the things that we need to do. It's using those gifts and talents He's given us so that we can bring Him glory. And to me, that's a lesson that we all can benefit from, is just knowing that those things that He laid on our heart are there for a reason. And even like me and writing, it was kind of like I always thought I would write a book. And then all of a sudden I was 60 years old and it was like, okay, it's time to get this done. And oh, the joy of just being able to fulfill that purpose for me. So yeah.
Yeah, and look at you. Years ago, you would have never said, "Oh, I'm writing," but you have done all these other things. So
Yes.
when I just recently read how you said, and I wanted to then you wanted to write a book, and you did it, and now you're going on your second one, and articles that it's like, look at that. And when we take time, when we give ourselves permission, sometimes the thing that we are called to isn't even a job.
Right.
I mean, look at painting. Some people may be like, well, that's a hobby. Well, but if God gave you such joy, and He gives us different things that we just truly delight in, and He delights in giving us those things.
Right. Right. And He wants us to take the time to do the things that we love. He
Mhm.
he he didn't mean for life to be drudgery ever.
And
So,
he doesn't mean for life to, that we're these workhorses either.
right.
But we think they are. I mean, we're either martyrs or workhorses. And he, sometimes I think in his humor, and it must hurt his heart as well. He must either chuckle or look at his own heart, just to go, they're missing the whole thing. I just want to break bread. Let's eat some fish. Let's sit on the beach. Let's delight, because he delights in us. I mean,
Yeah,
he delights in you. He pursues us every single day. I mean, it's just, faith is not boring,
right. Right.
you know?
And freedom is so different. We're all, this is coming off of the 4th of July and, freedom. And freedom isn't what the world tells us it is.
Yeah.
It's freedom in living our lives for him.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother episode we don't need to necessarily dive into here, but
But, going on freedom, for a lot of people, they think success, when they're success, whatever they're successful is then
yes,
they'll be free.
yes,
And living your more, I think you have to really take time to go back to where do you find joy? Where do you find peace?
yeah,
And when you look at success, what does that mean to you? Because oftentimes our own view of what success is very distorted. It's not even the proper,
yeah,
is it all that kind of stuff? And honestly, the older I get, the more I'm learning. Success really is, how content are you in the Lord? Look at the ones who are most content. They are the most free human beings on the planet. Whether you're stuck in a home with COVID, I mean, when COVID hit, although it's devastating and I don't want to make light of it, I was like, this is great. We could all just slow down. And I had lots of great time with the Lord. And when you get busy, you have to carve out that time. So I just think I would encourage all listeners, how content are you in Him? And if you're not, then just relook at those things, because maybe that's what's weighing you down and making you sick and bringing that drudgery,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
Yep. And I talk about that too. Again, I had a great career, and he lured me away from that with the promises of all the money and the, oh my goodness, it was going to be so glorious. But that wasn't what I really wanted or needed to bring me joy. It was serving and saying yes every day and doing, the books and the podcast and the conversations and the people that I've met. And he's provided for me. I don't have to worry about where the next meal is coming from or anything. And so I don't want to make light of that either, because there are people that honestly are, that is a main focus, because they do need those things to survive. But we're
So
all in
what would
different
you
places.
say? I'm curious. What would you say to people who are not in your position? They have to work,
Yeah.
and they do have that stress. They have to provide, whether it be a single mom or two adults, or or a mom and a dad who have to work. What would you say to them in finding their more at this point in their life, because they're
Yeah.
in a different place but still want to find their more? What would you say?
I would say again, and I think we've already talked about it, it's that expectation, and it's that shift in, don't focus on the promotion and, the house and all the things that we think we need, but just focus on the people that God brings into our life and love them right where they are
Yeah.
and serve when we can, not to the point where we feel like we have to do everything, but in that way of peace. And and just know that when we are connected with him and have that relationship with him, all those other things, I mean, he will provide. We have to trust him, and that is such a hard lesson to learn. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think about it a lot, because in my previous career I worked with the homeless.
Oh,
and
wow.
and even now, I work with the domestic abuse shelter, and I'm working with another group that with prison, women coming out of the prison industry. And those are hard places in life.
Yeah.
And I think about it, because it's kind of like, so, you know why are they there? What's going on there? And again, I believe that we go through hard times in our lives to help us to learn to trust him and to grow and strengthen us. And it's like I would love nothing better to help, anybody in poverty to find out what it is that drives them so that they can become the best that they can be, so that they can have a career that they love that will fulfill them and provide for their families. But I think sometimes people get discouraged and they let that fear and that self-doubt hold them back
Mm.
from all of the things that God really wants for them. And I would just love to help people turn that around and really live for him and just trust him.
Mm-hmm.
You got anything to
Yeah.
add to that one?
No, I would say, working in marriage ministry for years, expectation is a big deal. And it's a big one that I don't think the spouses realize sometimes till it's too late. But it's your own expectations that
Mm-hmm.
are deep within you that sometimes you don't vocalize, but they're there, right? And I would say to families, because sometimes we could do this, we could do our own work on ourselves and we can work with the Lord on our faith and all of that. But to grow your own family, if you're a couple or if you have children, as a unit, I think it'd be really cool. We have these friends who they just came to visit, and they do this thing where they do their yearly bucket list. And on their bucket list, on all four of their list was to come visit us in that for this year. So
Oh,
they just were here and they left. And it's just one of those create a vision for your family because for some adults, I think parents probably think, oh, I got to provide all the best and we got to do all these different things. But the truth is, have we asked our kids, what do you want? What would make this a successful family? What would make this a deeper connected family? How can we succeed as a family? And they might surprise you with their answers. It's not always the big to do. Maybe you actually have the same dreams. You just have different expectations on what that looks like. So
mm,
I think putting your expectations in light is probably one of the greatest things you could do because sometimes I think we're more alike than we are different.
mm,
But there are times when we're different and it's really what's holding us back and be willing to like talk about them and
yeah. You know, when you talk about family, one of the advice that I would love to be able to give young people, not young people, anybody in any relationship, truly is again that shift in perspective. It's kind of like you hear about the couple, and it's like I'm so sick of picking up his dirty socks, and wouldn't he just But instead of focusing on, it's like how hard is it really? You're right. It would be easy for them to do it but they didn't. And are you
yeah.
really ever going to change them? So instead, when you're picking up after that, or you're doing the dishes, or whatever it is you're doing, just be grateful and give thanks and praise to God that you have that spouse or that child to be able to love and serve.
Hmm.
Such a tiny, tiny shift.
Well, it is, but I would say that's a hard shift sometimes.
I
If
know.
you're hitting bumps in the road, right? It's
Yeah.
a harder shift because I could hear my own dialogue when I was in that place going, well, you don't know what I'm going through and he's not even around and blah, 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 blah. We have
Yeah.
that. There are just these unmet needs and we all have needs. I don't mean, you know, we learned this going through marriage ministry. There's a love bank.
Yep.
And in your
Yep.
love bank is there are things that we need. And if we can just, God, it's interesting that God, when I was really turning my life around and he asked me, do you want to get well? And the first thing he told me, he said, Dana, I asked him, like, what do I do to turn my life around? I mean, I don't have all day I don't even know at that point. I was like, the Bible was too big. I couldn't pronounce half the words in them. I don't know what you're talking about. And what do the Israelites have to do with my life anyway? Really? Like,
Right.
Israelites walking in the desert. I'm about to get divorced. Seriously. And I just didn't get it. And he just said, Dana, can you do two things? And I'm thinking, two things? That's it? I mean, that's a short list. And I thought I could do two things. And he said, love me with all you've got and love other people. And the first person in line to your other people, it's not your kids, it's not your friends, it's not your mom. He didn't say that, but it was like the first person in line is your spouse. So you have a whole list of people, but love me and love others with all you've got. Everything else will fall into place. Why? Everything falls under love. Everything falls under that. And so that became my really what we focused on. And so I find it interesting that God gives us two things because what we learned in marriage ministry is if we can figure out what our spouse's two top needs are, or our child's or our mother's or our father's or the people we work, how do they operate and what two needs are most important to them? If we just concentrate on two, everything else tends to fall in place.
Mm. Love it.
Otherwise, all these expectations, can really divide us. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
yeah.
We could talk all day long
I
about
know we
this.
can go all different ways, right? It's
Good.
just,
We could. I love it. So, couple of things. One of the questions I always love to ask my guests is, do you have a favorite verse? Is there one that you'd like to share with our listeners?
uh,
I know you don't
it's
like this
one of my
question, but I'm going to
least
make you
favorite
answer it.
questions. It's my least favorite question. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because most of the time people have this one verse. And for me personally, it's whatever one I need at the time that he gives me is my absolute favorite because he has the perfect word for the perfect time. When I need to hear something, when he gives it to me, that's my favorite one.
I love that.
It really is. So I don't have a favorite
That
verse,
might
but
be
I
the best. That might be
feel
the best answer right there, though.
yeah,
Truly.
because we can concentrate on one, but really it's again going back to do we make it about all these things and my own expectation, or do I concentrate on like what are you trying to tell me here? What do I need to know? And sometimes what he says will shock you. It's not going to be the common thing you think
Yeah.
man gives you, but it's the one you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Thank
just
you.
focus on him and listen. It's opening your ears and getting quiet.
Sounds like a book we should maybe get out there to the world.
Well, we just make it more spiritual and
Yeah, we do.
churchy than it has to, and it's like no, this is relationship here. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So, has there ever been a time, and I'm guessing there's been 100, so I'm going to ask you to just pick one. But the name of the podcast is Longing for More. Can you think of a time when your soul truly was longing for more? And just give us an example of how it was God that you were longing for and you maybe didn't even realize it at the time.
Mm. I feel this is a common theme in my own life and in so many because I go in seasons of this. And I think some of it is my own discontentment in him, where I don't seek him for everything, right?
Mhm.
But there are moments, I could probably give you 100 different moments, but I'll tell you in each one the theme. When I know that I'm starting to get hungry and I'm starting to long for more, it's usually him putting on my heart to go deeper with him.
Mm.
It's just a common theme that he does with me. And I notice that he puts what's in our hearts, not our fleshy side, but he draws us closer and he also pulls us out into the deep. And so we may feel like, oh, I want more, I need more, and yet he's going, yep, come on. And I'm it, but keep going, walk on the water. And we go, oh, it's scary out here. Let me just get back in the boat. And every time it's fear that keeps me going. But when I do, there's this rich season of deep intimacy.
Mm.
But like any relationship, we get very used and comfortable with that and start taking each other for granted, which I do I mean, he never does, but we just do. We get comfortable. And so what usually happens is he changes up how he talks.
Yeah, I
you know,
love that. And
yeah.
and for me, that's really where I'm kind of focused right now is that just boldly step out in faith,
Hmm.
um, and confidently live the purpose that he created us for. And those are strong words. And it it's funny because, my four words are, you gave your four at the beginning. My four words are peace and fulfillment, bold and confident.
Mm,
And the Bible is full of those words, and I
yeah.
really feel that that's what he wants for us. And when we hold back, or we let, sometimes it's not even just holding back, it's just that life gets so busy, and that's when we really need to carve out that time and just spend it with him. And you've said that more than once today, but it's so important. So
Hmm.
anyway,
Yeah.
so I think it's this, like I said, we could go on forever, But I'm pretty sure listeners are going to have other things they need to do in their life as well. So let's wrap up. Tell us, how can, if somebody wants to find out more about Dana Lyons, how could they find out about you? Where could they find you?
Well, they could go to coachdanalyons.com. My website is still under construction, but you could find me there. And my contact information is there if they want to connect or have any questions or if I could help them in any way. All my stuff is there on my about page. But I would
Yeah.
love to connect with people. Yeah.
Yeah. And then everyone, just so you know, Dana has a wonderful book that is just so full of
Mm.
encouragement and hope, and No Longer Cinderella. Um, you want to say a few words about that for us so people
Well,
can?
I'll give you a 30-second snippet for those who need it. No Longer Cinderella came out of a place of just a revelation for me one day. It just hit me. It was like, oh my goodness, I'm no longer Cinderella. And that wasn't my favorite movie as a child, but it's written out of the 2015 version of Cinderella, the movie. But I parallel my life, the movie, and then the Word of God. Because I find most women like me, we long to be the desired, pursued Cinderella, the one who
Yeah.
marries the prince. But often we find we really relate more to the servant girl, the slave girl, who is just, everybody dumps everything on her and has no respect for her. And more than anything, it wasn't so much people. It was my own belief and view of myself. And I find that working with women, it's their problem as well. So it's just walking people through getting more and more free and becoming who God created you to be, knowing your prince actually is pursuing you right now
Right.
and he adores you. You are his chosen perfect one. So yeah, it's just to help women, encourage them, build their faith, inspire the courage. It's in within each of us, and then encourage them every step of the way. So
It's a beautiful book. I highly recommend it. And just so you know, Cinderella was my favorite movie when I was a little girl.
oh
So we're talking way back, the old time Leslie Ann Warren,
wow.
yeah, black and white movie. Oh my gosh, I watched that thing every time they put it out there. And in fact, I think I bought it and made my kids watch it, which they thought
Wow.
was pretty lame, I'm sure.
The
But
2015 version just has so much detail. I always like to tell people, watch that first, then read my book, because then you'll get it.
and I did do just that. I watched it, and it is a great movie, and I do recommend it. It's very fun. So
Yeah.
it's just a great way to shift the way we look at things. So
Yeah.
shifting
Especially
expectations.
ourselves.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
Well, my friend, I just want to thank you so much. It's been such a joy to have this
Oh,
conversation. I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your innermost thoughts with our listeners today. And just thank you. Thank you. Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you for having me. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely. Wasn't that a great conversation? I just love talking to Dana. She has so much wisdom to share. So go check her out. Go check out her book. Check her out. Again, that's coachdanalyons.com. And then I would really appreciate it if you like this episode to share it with someone who you think might like it as well. And hop over to iTunes and leave a review. Give us some comments. And that's a really great way for others to find this show and can also learn how to live there more. I appreciate you stopping by so much. I know that your time is valuable, and I just pray that you got something out of this that you can use in your life and that will help you share Jesus with those people in your life. So thanks again for stopping by. Go be blessed. And until next time, when we talk about the purpose of possibility, I hope that you will always, always remember to live your more.